Hey guys, got a couple of RPG horror stories for you today. To start off with, we're going to be continuing the tale of Billy. So, as a brief reminder, the important names to remember are Joram, Billy, the monk, and the sorcerer who is the GM's wife. So, rewinding to a bit before the first session, one thing that Billy wanted us to do was to create some sort of engaging backstory that could inspire subplots or help with character development down the line. Backstories are great. Billy even started a Skype group for the game that, alongside our work chat, could be used to help the new players develop their characters' backstories. And as some may have noticed in the last story, I did end up borrowing from Pathfinder's iconic barbarian when creating the character and backstory. Joram was a fighter from a prestigious clan of warriors who passed down a large bastard sword. The sword was claimed long ago from a great battle with a giant, and was given to the person who won in a contest of strength against the current leader. The warrior who received the sword was exiled from the clan until they got word of the current leader's imminent demise. They would come back and take over as the leader of the clan, with new experiences and adventures to guide their future decision-making. Somewhat basic, I know, but I figured it was easy enough to work with and explained why Joram carried around and used a large sword. Now, picking up from where we left off last time, Session 3 or 4 started, and the party ended up finding a secret document that more or less explained the main story hook of the campaign. Orcs, goblins, and some evil kingdom, being led by the BBG of course, and they're all gathering together in a rather large amount of numbers in an attempt to take over the entire kingdom, or something like that. The party, not really knowing what to do with the newly acquired information, decided to continue to the capital city to deliver the document along with the mayor's request to the king. The sorcerer objected to our plan immediately, for you see, the sorcerer had played a different campaign, with a different party, as a different sorcerer, in the same homebrew world. The campaign we were playing was 30 or so years after the previous one, so the histories were still very much connected. The sorcerer, out of character, told us about a village close to the capital city, filled with spies, espionage experts, and the shadow ruler of the entire kingdom. She continued by telling us that it wasn't too far away and would be a much better place to deliver important documents to. She pretty much repeated the same thing, but in character. The monk asked if we could pause the game for a second and called her out for using knowledge her character wouldn't know.
Hey, yeah, just out of curiosity, how would your character know this?
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but didn't we all establish that we were new to adventuring? This place sounds pretty secretive for just any old person to know about.
Well, she would, just know about it from a book or something. She's pretty smart and well-read.
I'm not quite sure that's how that works, is it?
Well, her previous character from this world is her great-grandmother. She passed it down to her in a diary. It's backstory.
One thing to mention here is that Billy was staring daggers into me the entire time that we paused the game. I can't remember if he was also staring at the monk, but I don't think he did. We resumed the game and decided to just go with the sorcerer to the super-secret town where the Shadow Ruler lies. On the way, we stopped at a mountain keep that had been converted into some sort of rest stop with food, drink, and an inn. The bard, the monk, and I decided to have fun and spend some coin by drinking, dancing, and participating in various other bar activities. A barmaid came up to me during this and asked if I would like to hang out with her. I politely declined as I was having fun with my friends. She insisted, offering free drinks if I would. Again, I declined and went back to the arm wrestling contest that I was currently having with the bard. The other players got some scenes, and then I was told to roll multiple reflex saves, each with an increasing number of penalties for being various stages of drunk, despite having only bought one drink the entire night. Eventually, I failed one of these saves and...
Oh no! I've just accidentally hit the barmaid with my mug, spilling the remainder of my drink all over her.
She's really mad and starts loudly slinging slurs at you. You can see the rage in her eyes. I'm terribly sorry, miss. I must not have been paying attention. My mistake.
Joram tries to say that, but because he's so drunk, it comes out in slurs and sounds much ruder than intended. Because of the failed reflex, he stumbles while talking and accidentally pushes her down.
This scene went on for a little while with nothing that I could do to calm it down. At one point, I even pulled out a few gold to pay for the ruined clothing, hoping that it would smooth it over. But the gold was slapped out of my hand. To be honest, I was a bit confused over the entire thing out of character. Eventually, the scene died down, with the manager or owner coming over to smooth things over. He even offered to comp our rooms for us. How nice. We accepted that offer and headed to bed for the evening. The party woke up in the morning to a mostly empty inn and tavern and quickly realized that all of our stuff, minus the clothes that we slept in, was gone. Panicked, we rushed to the front where we found the owner, who told us not to worry. Each morning, staff would come by to collect our stuff and wash our clothes, polish our items, and sharpen our blades. After waiting around a bit, the party got all their items back. Everything missing was returned good as new, and with some temporary bonuses applied. Now, when I say everyone, I mean everyone but Joram. Joram got most of his stuff back, but his sword was mysteriously missing. Looking out the window after rolling some perception checks, the party noticed that the barmaid from the previous night was smashing Joram's heirloom sword on the stone path leading to the back door of the tavern, with chunks flying off the blade, and the sword almost snapping in half. Before the party could stop him, Joram had ran out of the tavern to try to stop his sword from being completely destroyed by yelling, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop it!" The barmaid dropped the sword, spun around, and pulled out a dagger. I yelled to the party, "I have a blade raised against me!" and lunged at the barmaid.
Are you sure you want to do that?
I mean, I've seemingly caught a thief red-handed, who not only stole from me, but is actively threatening me with a dagger. I see no reason why I would hold back.
Alrighty, everyone roll initiative.
Now, a little bit of a tangent here. I was both upset as a player and as a character at this point. Although I wasn't particularly attached to playing fighter with a large sword, I did feel like I was being punished for something that I didn't know I did wrong. I had specifically asked during the first session if Billy had wanted me to change my backstory and my weapon focus, and he said no to both. If this was some character-specific development based on my backstory, it wasn't, then I might have understood. But even then, I would have liked to have had that kind of conversation prior to the session taking place. Something Billy had mentioned to me in a prior session was that I needed to be careful with a weapon, and make sure that it didn't break, as no one would be able to fix it or craft another for anything shy of 9,000 gold.
It's a non-magical hunk of steel. 9,000 gold, my ass.
Losing my sword here would leave me weaponless with a handful of useless feats, or at least for a little bit, and really impact my backstory in a negative way. The idea of that alone didn't feel very good, and left me with a sour taste in my mouth for my own character. But, back to the story. So before combat started, I decided to fight using only my fists. I did have a backup weapon, but my plan was to use non-lethal attacks with the assistance of the party. I was hoping that we could resolve the whole thing quickly and maybe make peace with the barmaid after everything was resolved. I mentioned my intentions to the party, and the monk ran up and let a punch fly, dealing some non-lethal damage. The barmaid took a swing at me with the dagger and missed. I dealt a non-lethal hit. The bard sang a song, and then the sorcerer took her turn.
I cast Glue Seal on Joram.
What? Why?
Because I can tell he's really upset and there must be a way to solve this without violence.
But she drew a knife on me.
Well, you did charge at her out of nowhere, in a threatening manner.
Alright, roll a reflex. I fail, and fail the subsequent check to break free from being glued to the floor in place. Billy decided that combat was over by having the ragtag team of watchmen come over to investigate the issue. They placed me, and
only me, under arrest, while they got everyone else's statements. Most of the party told the same story about the events of the previous night and the current situation, except for the sorcerer who adds in that I suddenly and for no reason rushed the poor girl. One of the watchmen grabbed my now beat-up sword from the ground and held it in front of me.
Is this what all the fuss is about?
He then snaps it in half by beating it up against the wall. I get hauled away, waiting to be judged for my crimes, at the nearest town. The game ends, and I, along with most of the other players, are a bit quiet. Billy picks up how upset I am and asks to speak with me outside. I follow, bringing the monk with me. We talked for a bit about the whole situation, and I expressed my displeasure with some of the in-game events and being singled out randomly. Billy explained that he really wasn't purposely trying to target me in or out of the game, and admits that the big sword and other unrealistic, still not sure what he meant by this, features of my character really did bother him after all. He adds on that he might have expressed it on a whim in-game and in a very bad way. He apologized for the treatment out of game and asked if I would stay as a player. Ultimately, I told him I would give it another shot, mostly because I had become friends with everyone at the table, including the sorcerer and Billy himself.
What?
We were all pretty much the only employees at our company in the same 20-something-year-old age group, and these weekly sessions were a great way to get out of the house to meet up. I asked Billy if I could just roll up a new character, since I felt that this one was pretty much done with. He said sure, and we went back inside. And yeah, that's the anticlimactic end of my adventures with the mighty swordsman Joram. He got sent to Fantasy Alcatraz, and I think eventually murdered in a prison riot. I do feel bad that his clan is without a leader, but that little plot thread never came up again. Spoiler, only one person's backstory was actually explored in-game during the time I played with the group. I'll leave it open for who that was. I think I'll write one more post about this campaign and the various horrors that occurred after my new character, Ragu the Ranger, joined the party. Well guys, what's there to really say that I didn't really say in the first one? Except for, it shouldn't take 9,000 gold to make a hunk of metal that's not magical. This guy was very obviously just being petty, but you still decided to play with them for one more time after this. So, we'll have to find out what the next story is. But that's it for this one, so on to the next one. This next story is about a misunderstanding. So, I joined a one-shot with some friends a while back, and the premise was basically that we were all adventurers from different universes that had been summoned into a sort of gladiator fight that was broken up into 4 quadrants. Everything but us was placed in a time stop until we activated one of the fights, and then we moved on to the next fight once we finished the one we were on. The game started off pretty normal. We all introduced our characters and got the opportunity to roll checks to learn about the different fights beforehand, before heading into the next fight. We got progressively stronger healing items after each fight, so while we weren't given the chance to rest, we at least had something that was able to get us healed up between rounds. I was playing an Eldritch Knight/Divination Wizard based off an NPC in one of my games that served as a witch hunter head of the secret police for Strahd von Zarovich's son, who is now the Baron. I don't remember the exact specifics since this happened a while ago, but I rolled a nat 20 check into the top left corner of the map, which is a spelljamming ship placed in this little pocket of astral sea. Other checks were done by other players and myself into the other regions, but this is the crucial bit for the story. The first fight goes off without a hitch. It was a duel in a small western-style street against enemies based off of PCs from the campaign that the DM was running in the same server. Most of the players are from that game, so it was a fun thing for them to have to fight off themselves or their friends for a bit. The second fight went pretty well. We ended up killing a green dragon. I was barely able to keep one of the PCs alive with a well-timed thunderstep over to the cleric for an upcast, cure wounds. And after that fight ended, we decided to break the game up into a second session, as it was getting late for some of the players, as we were spread out across an 8-hour time difference.
The start of the second session is where things started to get a little bit weird. I don't remember what it was exactly, but there was some strange rule interpretations at some point that put me and at least one of the other players a little bit off. We ended up killing a fire giant before he could knock us too low. So we ended up getting into the real fight with some leftover healing items to spare. Unfortunately, since we weren't told before the first fight that we wouldn't be able to rest after each round, we were getting down to our last resources as we used up more spell slots and abilities than we would have in the first fight otherwise. Before we started the fight in the Astral Sea, we asked some quick questions to bounce off the nat 20 from the previous session that I rolled. During his description, he referred to my PC fully understanding how this space works and us being able to move up and down throughout the space. The problem started when I didn't realize that he just meant up and down in relation to the 2D map, not the actual physical 3D space of the game world. So we rolled initiative and placed ourselves where we wanted in the map. Myself and the one Marshal PC put ourselves right up against the enemy at the bowsprit. One PC stayed at the back of the ship to fire at the enemy with his bow, and the cleric and the other spellcaster sat at the bottom of the arena, directly south of us. At the start of the turn, this golden-masked illithid sprang into action, grabbing the Marshal character and him needing to make some intelligence saves. I was up next, and I pulled myself down into the void of the Astral Sea, and when I'm 30 feet away from the illithid, I cast Thorn Whip, pulling him off the bow before Misty stepping back onto the deck. And yes, I know it's kind of a cheap move, but before the fight, I asked if I could use Thorn Whip to move people through the Astral Sea. To which I was told yes, and I was willing to change up my plans if the DM decided against it when I put my plan into action. So I teleported back onto the deck, and the DM moved the illithid directly south, right on top of the cleric and the other spellcaster. Something neither of them wanted, since they wanted to stay away from the fight and blast off range spells to knock the enemy down. I asked for clarification from the DM, and he said that he pulled the enemy down off the bow, just as I had asked. When I told him that I meant vertically down, he specified that we weren't able to move vertically through the sea, only on the same plane of height. At this point, I said that I would have acted differently since my character has a full understanding of how the Astral Sea works in this space, as the DM had put it. I'm paraphrasing, but that's mostly verbatim. He said, "No, you pull him down off the bow and that's what happens, so remove your spell slot," before using a legendary action to make an attack against the cleric after I told him that's all for my turn. I mentally checked out for the rest of the session from this point and just went through the motions. Basically just casting either Toll the Dead or Firebolt until it was all over, since that Misty Step was my last spell slot. I ended up scrapping a one-shot that I had in development to co-DM with him, which was far from becoming a reality. We were still working on the map and some niche mechanics that we were going to have to homebrew. Plus, with the scale I wanted it was super laggy. Well guys, it's probably a good thing that the OP decided to can that homebrew before it became a massive time sink, just to find out that the DM was crap. Which, of note, what a stupid thing to not just allow a rollback because of a misunderstanding. But that's all I got today. So, as always, have a good one.